Congresswoman Ms. Ramirez is recognized for 5 minutes for questioning.
Thank you, Chairman Higgins and Ranking Member Correa of the Border Subcommittee for convening today's hearing. However, I do wish that we could be focused on addressing the root causes of migration rather than having to debunk myths and respond to Republican fear-mongering. I sincerely hope we can look beyond the politics and work together to achieve comprehensive immigration reform and address the causes and the concerns we have around this opiate crisis. We know that nearly 90% of hard drugs, such as fentanyl, heroin, and methamphetamines, are seized by CBP at our ports of entry rather than between them. And even when hard drugs are seized between ports of entry, the vast majority are seized at vehicle checkpoints. Mr. Mandrick, can you confirm that nearly 90% of hard drugs seized are at ports of entry? Is that yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And Mr. Mandrick, is it true that the vast majority of opiates seized between ports of entry are seized at vehicular checkpoints?
That's correct, ma'am.
Thank you. And Mr. Mandrick and I'm going to do my best because pronunciation is important to me. Mr. Papadopoulos, did I get it right? My understanding is that more than 85% of the people convicted for smuggling fentanyl are U.S. citizens. Is that accurate?
So, ma'am, I can talk about the seizures and then turn it over for the actual prosecutions. When we look at those encounters at the ports of entry, so Office of Field Operations, there's two ways to look at that. That's by weight and by number of events. If we look at it from events, so individual encounters, this fiscal year, we're at 73.1% are U.S. citizens, the balance being Mexican nationals. If we look at that by weight, we're looking at about 56% U.S. citizens. The delta between those two is a lot of the U.S. citizens we see are very small quantity personal use.
And what about convicted for smuggling fentanyl? Is it U.S. citizens, the majority?
Ma'am, I'm going to have to get back to you on that. I don't know the answer to that, but I will happy to get back with you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. So, Mr. Mandrick, would it be fair to say that the majority of seizures in between ports of entry, because even with the percentages you gave me, are also from U.S. citizens and U.S. persons, more so than from Mexican nationals?
It's a fairly close breakdown. We will have to get back with you on the specifics.
Thank you. Mr. Mandrick, can you also share the percentage of opioid CBP seized on migrants, not in vehicles, during the fiscal year? Do you have that information?
It's a very small percentage of those who were actually on migrants or opioids. We don't have the firm percentage. We can get back.
So very small percentage.
Yes, ma'am.
Correct? That's what I thought. So just to clarify, Mr. Mandrick, would you agree that undocumented persons traveling on foot between ports of entry represent a very small fraction of the people trafficking opiates across our borders?
Yes, ma'am. There's a variety of reasons behind that. The ability to exploit the illegal travel with millions of people each day back and forth, easy concealment techniques, operational security with a counter surveillance of individuals.
Thank you. We know the alarming number of fentanyl overdoses is emblematic of a larger drug abuse public health crisis that our country is experiencing and has been for decades. And I deeply sympathize with the losses that many families, including in the 3rd Illinois District, are facing. But this issue is broader than one of border security. In the words of Mr. Chester, and I quote, you said that hold on one second, I want to get it right. Ending the opioid crisis doesn't start at the border and it won't end in the border. So I think we need to treat and demand driving this epidemic, and we need comprehensive health care and access to education, treatment for everyone. Mr. Chester, knowing that, what initiatives is this administration pursuing to prevent substance abuse in our communities and support these in recovery?
Thank you very much. And you stated correctly, right? The efforts that we take to keep these drugs out of our country have got to be complemented by strong public health efforts in order to be able to reduce their demand. And it really starts with prevention, particularly youth prevention. We out of ONDCP, manage the Drug-Free Communities Program, which is enormously successful, more than 700 coalitions funded around the country, focused at the local level in order to prevent drug use. The second thing is reducing barriers to treatment, whether those barriers are monetary or regulatory, ensuring that everyone who needs treatment is able to get it. And sadly, about 8 out of 10 Americans who need treatment don't have access to it. And then the final thing is to create communities and workplaces that are recovery ready so that individuals in recovery can continue their sustained recovery, stay with their families, get a good job, and not tragically enter back into the population of those using drugs.
Thank you for your time, and I yield back.